Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is episode 3 of the Off the Pitch podcast, where we take some of the most notable figures in the Rocket League scene, ask them some hard-hitting questions about their life, and get to know the real person behind the sticks, behind the screen, and for today, behind the mic. As today, we have the multi-title talent, 1/4 of the Champ League show, featured on CRL, CECC, RLCS team streams, and many more. We have the overly energetic caster, Oliver Bass from the past. How you doing, man?
Doing good. I'm glad you used the self-proclaimed title of the most overly energetic caster. That's probably still the thing that most people notify me or identify me by. But glad to see you also agree with the self-proclaimed title.
I mean, I've been trying to challenge you for that title there, but so I was about to say, there's not many casters in the scene, as far as I'm aware, that have energy and hype like you do, at least behind the mic and on any cast I've seen so far from you.
I mean, look, I know Jorby is probably going to still be most people's minds the number one, and it's hard to challenge the king, so I'm not going to really take offense if anybody thinks otherwise. But it's energetic caster, like you said, do a couple of different titles. People probably know me from a couple of different places around Rocket League. At this point, the team streams very far and wide. This season alone, I've already worked for KCP and Omelette, so there's a variety out there. You might have seen me around the scene, whether that or CRL or somewhere in between. But I'm glad to be here today. I'm excited.
Yeah, and I appreciate you for coming on again. This is episode 3. We had DJ TJ as well, one of our good friends in the caster scene, in the first episode. Arsenal there in the second one. So if you haven't checked those ones out, I highly recommend you do. We talked about some great topics there, both from a pro player perspective, caster perspective, collegiate perspective, and all about mental health and their religion as well. So make sure you go check that one out. But today, we are talking about, Bass, your career and what it means to be a caster, and a heavily seamed caster as well, because you have been all over the place, man.
Yeah, it's been a very blessed 4 years. I've a lot of work went into it, so I oftentimes say I'm lucky to have done what I've done, and usually get flack from probably my parents, my friends, and a lot of my colleagues. They're like, no, you worked, you earned it. But even then, I'm blessed to have done what I've done over the last 4 years. I've worked, as you've mentioned through the beginning of it, I've worked on multiple national championships for collegiate titles. I've worked on national championships for non-collegiate events, actually, as well. I've done RLCS work. I've done CRL work. I've done work in other games. I've done multiple DreamHack live events for even Fortnite, large events in Fortnite as well. It's been a long career, and I'm grateful for it. But it spans far and wide, I think, is a good way to put it.
Yeah, and I mean, I have a couple of the facts. I don't know if you actually knew this yet, but you have, at least for Rocket League, over 250 events based on your Liquipedia page, 5 CRL seasons, so you've been in at least on the B or A stream for 5 CRL seasons, 2 national championships with CRL as well, 1 RLCS Worlds appearance, which we will be talking about shortly, and then 16 RLCS APAC mainstream appearances as well.
That is, I mean, the numbers sound accurate. They're just almost, it's kind of unfathomable for me to think about, going back on all of them.
Yeah, I mean, you said it yourself. You have 4 years. You started there during the COVID years, and you've progressed so far already in these 4 years, and I'm excited to see what you do forward. But let's take it back. I mean, I guess we have to go with a Bass from the past. I mean, it's a bad one. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do that again.
I expected it at some point. Usually I get a blast from the past joke somewhere in these.
I just tried doing the Bass, not the blast. But getting started, these amateur scenes, I remember we talked about many times for IGL, Indie Gaming League, what that series, also any other amateur events that truly got you a kickoff.
I mean, there's a number of them, but the way I got into the scene, funny enough, was just kind of, it's a combination of both COVID and also just kind of sheer boredom.
Mm-hmm.
Just being, lockdowns are starting. I lived in California at the time. They were pretty quick on lockdowns and definitely put things into effect in pretty strict regards. And so I moved home. I was going to school at the time. I moved home because it just didn't make sense. My school was shutting down. They were all going to be online classes, and there's no point in being there if all my family's at home. So moved home, got into lockdown, and just kind of wanted to mess around on Twitch because I had seen, realistically, I think the main things I was watching was RLCS and Johnny Boy.
Yeah.
A lot of 1v1 stuff from Johnny Boy, a lot of RLCS, and a decent amount of CRL as well. It was I was I'd say adjacent to CRL is the best way that I can
Yeah.
put it. But yeah, I was watching a lot of that. Kind of decided, all right, well, I have a Twitch channel that's like, I think I had like 400 or 500 followers at the time. I was like, I used to have people. Maybe I can do it again. And so I started hosting tournaments inside of Rocket League. That started to spread as I was just like, getting more and more people coming. And eventually I saw a Sunless Con video where he advertised for IGL, like you said, Indie Gaming League. And Indie Gaming League was the first league I ever signed up for. They let you host games on your channel. I say let you because you do them all for free. I think the concept very cool is maybe something that, like, again, you can really only do as a starting caster because you're
Yeah.
just trying to get your name out there. You're trying to do all this stuff. You would host all these games for free. You would have people come to your channel. Your viewership would go up. It would be awesome. And I just did that enough until eventually, like, amateur scenes, like you talked about, kind of heard my name from somewhere, or I found them somehow through a connection to who knows what. And the first real paid stuff I did was with the NECC, which is still a prominent league today in the collegiate scene. I was the first ever hired caster they had at that staff. They had other casters on staff, but they were basically a part of the crew. They were like, behind the scenes people, talent manager, somewhere in between. I was the first one they ever hired. And that's kind of where it all took off. I had a conversation with the CEO, Caleb Glooby. He was like, hey, you should really consider this more than you are right now. And I think the next year is when I tried to go full time, or at least start pursuing it in more of a serious fashion.
That honestly is amazing. I mean, I remember with Indie Gaming League as well, I was, I think, diamond or champ at the time of when I first found that league, and all of my friends were like, yeah, dude, you got the voice, you got the voice. By the way, I'm like 17, 18 years old at this point. They're like, yeah, you got the voice, you got the voice, you got the voice, you got to do some casting on there. I never did. And I think that is something I will always take to my grave of being a regret for me, is I never took those amateur opportunities until I was like, this is actually kind of fun. I have a passion for casting. I love using my voice as well in order to do this stuff, because I was a singer for a while. So using my voice was very common for me. But in the way that you do it, you make it look effortlessly. And obviously, that's a huge props to you. And a lot of people that have helped you with that. Like, who you have had mentors, as far as I'm aware, in the past as well, who kind of like got you started. Obviously, you said with NECC you got started there, but who else has been kind of a mentor for you?
It's honestly been it's been a lot of different people is the best way I can put it. Because as much as I had mentors, I also definitely had a lot of people who were just partners, and the partners that I worked with, we strive to improve. When I started off, shout out to Kendo. Kendo was definitely one of the first people that I think, like, with many casters, give you some feedback, talk to you, give you notes, things like that. But it was really the people that I think I worked closely with, and I give a lot of credit to Hypheria. I think a name that maybe not as many people know nowadays, but was definitely one of the most prominent casters in the scene for a very long time. Him and I came up together, and we were working on pretty much anything that we could. We got connected through, I think it was Team Volted was the name of the organization, if I'm not mistaken, way back when. We got connected through that. Two of us started working together, and we found a niche in OCE and in Asia that we started working on. We would do late night broadcasts. For me, it would be like 11 p.m., 1 a.m., whatever. For him, it's like the middle of the morning. If it's an 11 p.m. thing for me, he's waking up at like probably 6 a.m., getting ready, like starting it up, getting on. And we do those broadcasts for almost nothing. And then afterwards, we'd go in VOD review. We would study. We would give each other notes. We would, sit down and literally have sessions where we would just kind of like find ways to improve. We modeled ourselves after a lot of different casters in the scenes and people that we looked up to, and did a lot of notes and reviews on that. And yeah, I think Dan was a really cool person. Hypheria was one of like one of the best like casters I could work with, just for the sake of his attitude and the work ethic that he had. And I don't know if I'd say mentor for me. I had mentors, I guess, to a degree, but I think that like that was probably the person that pushed me the most, that helped me improve the most. Mentor-wise, like I said, Kendo wouldn't be a bad one. I think Danger Taco would be one, as much as Danger Taco and I are kind of like just really good friends now. Like, he's one of my closest friends on the planet. He very much, I think when I started, he was a lot more experienced than I was, and I was amateur in comparison to him. And I think that has kind of not necessarily equaled out at this point, because I think both of us are still continuing to improve. And at times, we've always got feedback. So at some point, I'll be the mentee, he's the mentor. Just it's how it works when you have a relationship where you're always trying to improve. But like, I think for like mentorship wise, Kendo would probably take it. Yummy would take it. Yummy Cheese Man has a lot of people. One of the goats of OCE. And when I started working on the OCE broadcast, he did not hold back, dude. He did not care. Like, Yummy is very much the dry Australian humor that most people expect out of, I think, a part of Australians.
Yeah.
And he fits it perfectly. It's exactly who he is as a personality. And I love Yummy. He was extremely helpful in the career that I had and the ways that I continue to improve. He gave me tons of really good feedback about what I should be doing, what I should not be doing, things to lean into, things to try to avoid. Like, it was great. I really do attribute a lot of my success to Yummy and the work ethic he put into me and really the tips that he gave me back then. And then honestly, all of the RLCS people, they've all been very friendly to me. I think a couple of them that have been reached out to me and spoken to me a bit more would be Spaceman, Corelli, Lemon Kiwi is just like a good friend to me as well.
Yeah.
Love her. She's awesome. Like all of the crew, even if I'm not naming all the names, have been very friendly, but like a couple of them definitely did help me like in decisions for my career, how to improve, where to lean into, where not to. So the mentorship, I guess, comes from a variety of different sources, if you will.
I mean, yeah, and we talked about with Arsenal as well, like who's kind of been there as like the support rock almost, being able to help out, give advice here and there. And it truly does change because as you grow, as you gain influence from a lot of different sources, you just take everything in and incorporate it into your style, into who you are as a person as well. And then going forward, those mentors or friends, if you will, they kind of help you as you go, and then you start working with them more and more, and they get closer. That bond is just created, and it's incorporated into almost everything you do with them. And one of those being CRL, Collegiate Rocket League. You started on the B stream there, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, with Danger Taco as well.
Taco was on a little earlier than me, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I think he was on for about a year prior. I was always that kid, like looking through the windows of the outside looking in, like, oh my gosh, one day.
That's where I'm at right now.
I mean, a lot of people have been there for a very long time.
Yeah.
I think CRL was definitely the goal that was the most obtainable for me. I said this early on in my career is that I would rather be a CRL caster than an RLCS caster. And it sounds dumb to a lot of people, but for me, A, the niche of it is just something I really enjoy. And B, for me, CRL is just such an important part of the scene that I think a lot of people don't really pay attention to the degree maybe they should. Just because collegiate esports has got such a bright future in everything, and I think a lot of people don't quite consider that or recognize how important it's going to be, especially in North America going forward. And I always thought it was something that I could obtain and that I wanted to get onto and that I wanted to work on. And so I worked for it for a very long time, doing every collegiate event under the sun that you could think of, every side league that existed. Again, NECC was something I was working on for a very long time. Was EFG another collegiate league? I feel like there's another one I was working on. There's too many. ECAC was another one I worked on. Like, there's a variety of them, but the problem is that I can't remember because of how many I was working on. So, like, that should explain how many different events I was trying to work with to get into the collegiate spotlight. And eventually I did. I was first recruited to Summer Series, if you know what that is, or if any of the audience does, which is probably the largest collegiate event for Rocket League every summer put on by the College Carball Association, which is part of like EFUS or Arena, depending on what you know them as. And yeah, that was kind of the introduction. I think that was in probably 2022, I would say, that I got into Summer Series first. And then after that is when I got added to the B stream. And yeah, it was a dream come true. There's not really much else to say besides that. It was really insane to be able to work in the B stream, to be able to cover so many matches, also cover matches independently, put them on my channel, stuff like that. So it was awesome. I love collegiate. I continue to love collegiate to this day. It's been a huge avenue for me. There's so many other places that I continue to work in collegiate, including like CECC, as you mentioned before. But CRL is just a really cool place. Cool people who work on it. Awesome project.
Yeah, and I mean, going from all that with CRL, you were with them for quite a long time. Obviously, 5 CRL seasons. Like I said at the beginning, you have been with CRL and Collegiate Rocket League, supporting just collegiate esports in general for a very long time now. However, the one thing I do want to kind of tuck into is late 2023, early 2024, CRL and CCA went on a hiatus.
Yeah.
There was no Collegiate Rocket League sponsored by Psyonix or sponsored by Epic, nothing from CCA in that late 2023, early 2024 period. What was your mindset there? Because like CRL was finally starting to ramp up as a proper production as well. Not proper production, but a mainstream production, I think is a good way to say it. Kind of what was your mindset going from there?
It was a weird one, man, because the thing that also I think a lot of people that that I don't think people maybe forget or just didn't really know is that the B stream was canceled
Yeah.
before that. So I was already not involved in CRL at that point. CRL was only the main stream for that fall, and then going into that spring when it was canceled, there was just nothing. So we already thought there would be a void in the fall. We tried to cover matches as we could, and it was nice to be able to cover the matches in the fall that we could. But realistically, we kind of knew that it was like something's going on with CRL. We heard whispers behind the scenes. We were, there's little things, details you hear here or there. And when we found out that it wasn't coming in the spring, I feel like a lot of us were kind of in denial. We were like, no, Psyonix will come around and figure out something eventually, right?
Yeah.
And the more we kind of got, the further we got into the semester, the more we realized, like, okay, this is not great. It was kind of one of these things where I just kind of had to have faith that things were going to rebound and turn around, because the reality is, like I said, collegiate's very important. I think a lot of people don't recognize how important collegiate is to the overall ecosystem of both Rocket League and really just like the ecosystem of esports. Rocket League is the most popular esport in all of collegiate, and this isn't really a debatable thing, both viewership wise as well as also participation wise. If you go to a university that has an esports program, there is I think like 95+% chance that they have a Rocket League team. The other games, there's a variety of different amounts of chances that they will have, but like Rocket League is by far the easiest to recruit for, to pay for, to everything across the board. It is 3 players, a coach, and that's pretty much it. You can get a manager, you can get a mental health coach, you can try to get substitutes, you can do a bunch of other things, but realistically, for a lot of these programs, if you want to go as bare bones as possible, which for many small universities is the only obtainable thing, it's 4 players, and you don't necessarily need to give them full scholarships. You can give them some sort of scholarship, and that's already enticing enough. So Rocket League is a huge program at a collegiate level, and it's extremely important. So for CRL, I think a lot of people were just kind of like, it's over, it's GG's, it's not coming back, da 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 da. I never really believed that. I think it sucked. It really was not fun. I think for a lot of us, we were just kind of sitting here like twiddling our thumbs like, oh my God, this is awful.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think we all had faith it was coming back. It's just too integral to Rocket League as well as the esports scene, like I said. And it was just kind of like a, have faith type of moment is maybe the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys also had, I mean, the 4 hosts of the Champ League show. You guys had that before the hiatus, and I believe you guys started before the hiatus and continued kind of going into that spring split. But once there was no season there, you guys took a break, came back in the summer for CCA Summer Series, and what a return, by the way, you guys had. I was watching that entire show as well, and you guys had a fantastic return, great announcements, the way you guys bounced off each other as well. Champ League show genuinely is, the best way to put it, is a funny yet informative show about the collegiate Rocket League scene, and it's definitely something you need to check out. They will be down in the description as well if you guys do want to check it out. But how did that idea come to start?
So Champ League is actually technically my creation. It's very much like, look, I give credit to everybody involved. The main 4 hosts, myself, Seb, Taco, and Vaudable, like they are also people who I don't know if there's no real ownership, but they are part of the crew that creates the show. They are very much the creators of it as well. But the way it came to be is basically, I had been trying to plan out a collegiate podcast for a while, or a show, or somewhere in between. And I had this idea of what was very much like, if you've ever seen Plat Chat from Overwatch or Valorant, probably most likely Valorant for most people. It was to basically create that, but for collegiate Rocket League. Was more or less the way that, like, not the vision I had, but like the way we were trying to create the show and what I wanted to make. I wanted to do that combined with a couple of other like shows from ESPN and from more modern mainstream like sports media. College Game Day is a really great example of where you are making predictions and you're kind of debating seriously, but there's a lot of nonsense that also happens on the show additionally. Especially the guest features part is something we really tried to implement, is to like bring experts from around the scene. But that was an idea that I had for a while and was trying to figure out how to create it. Eventually, Taco and I think we're just in a call or some sort, and I just went, you know what, screw this, I'm making this. Like I've got a call with Jack tomorrow. I'm going to see if he's got time for a meeting upcoming. Jack is exotic. He's one of the, back then, he was one of the employees of both College Carball and eFuse that was working on a lot of different stuff for CRL and across the board. He's still involved in CRL, but is no longer employed by eFuse. But he is, he was somebody I was having a meeting with like him and Mateo, the NA regional manager, as well as also one of the heads of CRL.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, let's see if I can get this pitch ready. I want to make a pitch for them. I want to have assets already created. I want to have an idea of how run of shows are going to look. I have an idea of who I want involved, all of these things. And funny enough, we kind of created the meeting, and then like 2 days before, a day before, no, it was the day of the meeting, Vaudable comes up and he goes, yo, I have this idea, and then like gathers a bunch of people in a Discord, all these things, and I'm like, I really want to say something, but like this meeting's in like 40 minutes. I just need to get through it, and then I will tell him, hey, by the way, I was already meeting with Jack for this today. I'm sorry. I didn't want to I just wanted to wait until the plans were more laid out, and then I could get other people involved. And then after that, Seb, Vaude, myself, Taco, back then Hercules, who was more involved in it as well, kind of sat down, tried to figure out what we wanted to do, what the format was going to be, all of that. The base of the format, as for anybody wondering, is basically we get on, recap the last week of collegiate, because usually there's multiple leagues going on, there's multiple events going on, big results, upsets, things like that. We rank teams, so the top 10 teams in the nation, similar to college football top 25. You know, it's an expert panel that just kind of ranks all of them, and then we debate basically our lists against each other, and then we look at the week ahead or look at events ahead, or there's a bunch of different segments. But the base of it is basically chat about what's happening in collegiate, rank teams, nonsense. And that has been the bread and butter for over a year now. We just passed over a year of shows.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, there's a lot of podcasts. Obviously, there's this one, Off the Pitch. Go make sure you follow it as well. But there's a lot of podcasts that like start up. They don't really stay consistent, and then they just fall off maybe a month or two in because they don't realize like, hey, this is a lot of work that goes into a podcast. But there's a difference between one person or two people doing a podcast and then 4 people meeting up weekly doing live shows on the College Carball Twitch channel, all about collegiate Rocket League. And I mean, the way that you guys have created a platform to where you could speak your mind, one, have funny debates about who's going to be, why is Maryville number 3 instead of number 1 or something like that. Like, the way Vaude always defends himself. And then, of course, St. Clair has to be at the top of Seb's list because it's Canadian. There's a different story about that one, though. But Champ League has always been a very good show to watch. It's very entertaining and informative as well. So for you guys that are trying to get into the CRL scene or even just collegiate Rocket League in general, that is definitely something you want to check out.
I appreciate that. I recommend it to everybody, man. It's great. It's a fun show to make, really enjoyable. I'm glad to see the progress. Like you said, it's very hard to make a show like that stay consistent, especially when you're unfortunately forced into hiatuses at multiple different moments. So being able to have an audience that is consistently entertained is really nice. And it's been also nice to see the feedback from the players as well. The players have very much talked about how much it's like it's been encouraging for some of them to be like, okay, they don't think we've got it anymore. Cool, I'm gonna prove them wrong. I want to get at the top of the list. Like, again, the argument I always make is we'll have programs come in and they'll be like, how dare you rank me number 7 in the nation? You're 7th. You're not 58th. It's not like I ranked you like outside the top 20. Like, you're 7th. Like, let's calm down now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun. It's a very argumentative show. It's very enjoyable.
Yeah, and something about the Champ League show just reminds me of something. I don't remember exactly what it is, but there is this YouTube channel that reminds me so much of Champ League show. I don't remember what their name is because I haven't watched it in years, but the chemistry between all the hosts of you guys just reminds me so much of just like that family tight-knit bond. And you mentioned it earlier with the Danger Taco, how he's one of your closest friends, and I know a lot of the, or if not all of the CRL talent are really close to you. But there's one thing in particular I want to mention, and this is transferring into RLCS. But there's this one duo we always have to talk about whenever it comes to Bass, and it's the Fish Taco.
Yeah.
The Fish Taco duo has done so many team streams as well for RLCS, and the most recent one was Pioneers because you did sub in for Seb on day 1 and day 2 for this most recent open qualifier for the Birmingham Major, which is the first one for Pioneers run. Dude, the amount of times we say the Fish Taco cast,
It's a lot.
It's insane.
It's got a lot. It's become a lot.
Yeah, I wanted before this podcast recording, I wanted to go in and look through your Twitter. I'll see how many times. That's why I didn't.
Good luck.
That's
it
why
goes
I
back
didn't.
years.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I did it. But it would have been absolutely phenomenal. Just be like, yeah. By the way, you and Taco have done 73 casts together, or something like that.
He probably has got the stats written down.
Has to
That
have
man
the
is
stats.
organized. I have no idea. Like it's been a long time. I mean, like I said, Taco's one of the first people I met in Rocket League.
Yeah.
I met him as like we were both bubble casters way back when. I'm trying to think of what would be the first broadcast we worked on.
Was it NECC?
It might have been, but I don't think I primarily worked with him for NECC. NECC because my work at NECC was originally I was a caster there. Then I became a talent manager there and was part of like the people who brought everybody in. Like their first season where they expanded to multiple games, I had to go through like 200 applications and send out, like, thank you for applying. We're not taking you, or thank you for applying. We will. Here's the form. All it like the amount of introductions I had back then. So it's very possible I met Taco through just that alone.
Yeah.
I have surprisingly a lot more prominent casters than I would think nowadays. We're working like Leg Day is always the one that like blows my mind. Who currently works on Overwatch's like Champion Series. Yeah. He's doing the Marvel Rivals main broadcast. So like that dude like was applying back then. So you never know who you meet. But it could have been through that. It could have been through MLE. It could have been through a lot of different stuff. But I met Taco probably back in 2021, 2022. We have casted together in so many different things. I don't cast with him as much in RLCS anymore right now, mainly because last year he worked with Seb for OG. Because for those that don't know, Seb is the ultimate OG fan. So they kind of like, came as a package deal this year when going to the new JNaps team, because JNaps was on OG last year. But yeah, I've worked with Taco on so many things. We've done 2 national championships now for CECC. In both 2024 last year as well as 2023 the year prior as well. So yeah, shout out to my boy Taco, man. I love that dude. He's him and I continue to strive every day to continue to get better, and I think we continue to do so. And I wish him all the success in the world. I'm glad to see he's doing well.
Yeah, and with those team streams as well, it's not only that you've done duo cast, you've also done some solo casting. Yeah. Most recently, I'm gonna show this picture on screen. You're gonna see it right here.
Oh, it's the omelet?
It's the omelet one. Man, what is up with that knife, bro?
I had to jank it up. I was like, how do I hold the knife improperly? Like, so that it looks like stupid is, because like you actually are supposed to hold knife. Like, no, that was just like grip the knife dumb, grab like a really janky spatula and like see wear the hat raw. Like the omelet I've worked for like over a year now because Zanil is my boy and I've covered him in RLCS on so many different teams. And at this point, he was like, yo, you want to do omelet again? And I'm just kind of ready to go. I got the bits ready to go. I got like all the, I got all the chef jokes like packed and loaded, man. So, omelet's great. I love working on team streams, man. They're just fun. Even if, some of them are unpaid because nowadays orgs are unfortunately rarer to find for solo casters and such.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in just a moment, but there is one thing in your RLCS career that not many can say they have done. Season 2021 to 2022 RLCS, you were on the desk for the wild card, I believe it was, during the World Championship. Dude, what was that like? I mean, again, not many people can say, hey, I've been on RLCS before.
I mean, it was the World Championship, and I think a lot of people also like one of the things back then is that like I get to claim is that like I was not just a guest of like, oh, welcome to the desk for like a second. I was paid to be there. That was a job I was hired for. I was a hired caster for the day. It was a guest spot. Yes, still very much a guest spot because of it. But I worked APAC the entire year. This was the first LAN back from COVID. It was the first LAN also with outside regions. Yeah. So beforehand, it had been OCE, NA, South America, EU. That's it. Those were the 4. They added both APAC regions because back then APAC was split into
North and South.
They added Sub-Saharan Africa, and then they added MENA, and those were the new 4 regions. And so I came in as basically the guest, quote unquote, to explain those regions. My role did not actually turn into that. Unfortunately, the chaos of my contract, plus how last minute it was trying to get me involved, very much turned into we're just going to only be able to have you on for a couple of series. I did still get to call SSA and talk a little bit about them. Yeah. And I also got to talk about South America, but unfortunately I didn't get to talk about APAC, the I think region I probably should have been on the desk for those. But yeah, it was insane, man. at the end of the day, no matter where my career goes next, I think I always get to be able to say, hey, I worked a world championship for an esports event. It's a lot of the momentum from that carried me and my career for a little while after. It really helped open a lot of doors that I don't think would have been open otherwise. But it was awesome. I mean, I just shout out to Cliff, man. Cliff no longer works for, or not, excuse me, not Cliff. Corey. Cliff does
Yeah.
still work for. Yes, Cliff still works for Rocket League Esports. He's also awesome. But Corey, who no longer works for Rocket League Esports, he I believe works for Amazon now or somewhere in there, another tech division somewhere.
Yeah.
Super successful dude, super down to earth person. And I basically approached him at CRL World, said, "Hey man, my name's Oliver. You probably know me by Bass. I work in APAC. I love the game that you guys like work on. I would love to be able to go to the World Championship and be able to talk my stuff at the World Championship." And he went, "All right, I'll hear you out. Let's just schedule a meeting." And that I don't know how many people who are executives and like high level employees at companies today would have a random a random caster from backstage just come up to you and be like, "Yo, I'm working the Fortnite event next door. Hear me out." Like, so I appreciate Corey a lot, man. I wouldn't be here without him, like, truly.
Yeah, and I mean, you've done so much in your career, just in 4 years as well. I mean, it's absolutely insane. But we're gonna move on from your career. We're gonna send it to a short segment I like to call the fast track.
Okay.
I mean, Bass, you know, I used to host the fast track show matches and the fast track 1v1 series, but we're bringing the fast track back, but this time in a quick fire succession. I'm gonna say the first thing. I'm gonna say 5 words. You say the first thing that comes to your mind. When I say duo, what do you think about?
Taco.
When I say passion.
Honestly, esports. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
When I say collegiate.
Rocket League.
Bad moon.
Talent.
Favorite moment. Makes you think.
It's two words because there's a story behind it, but APAC win.
Explain.
That was one of my favorite moments and so one of the most memorable. I actually just rewatched the clip for what feels like probably the upteen time. Was the first win APAC ever had at an RLCS LAN outside of APAC or SSA.
Yeah.
So when Elevate beat G1 on LAN at the wild card, that moment was kind of the vindication for like the years of working on APAC and seeing the growth in the region. And seeing Realize get the win that he deserved. That moment, despite not having actually casted it, still lingers in my mind to this day for sure.
Fair enough, but yeah, I mean, dude, I don't even know how many times I've said it so far in this podcast, but you've done a lot.
It spans far and wide, man. It's
really
varied. It's varied.
Yeah, and you've been not an idol, but a very close friend of mine for this. I believe, yeah, you were one of the first people I met in esports as well, vice versa to you there. And we both know how hard esports casting content, and regardless of where you are, it can be. And so you went full time in 2021, casting and content. Tell me a little bit about the stresses, exactly like where your mindset was at, and if you had any struggles with mental health during that time.
I think back then, honestly, the mental health struggles were kind of what drove me to do that. I was very lost as a early 20-something kid. I really just didn't know what the hell I wanted to do with my life. I had dropped out of college already twice at that point. Technically, I was in college when I found casting. The second time, I'd come back to college because originally I went to school out of state, hated it, came back, tried to figure myself out for a couple of years, went back to school, and then the second time is when COVID hit, and I went, "Oh, this sucks." I do not do well with online learning. I know for some people it's very much their thing. I'm trying to remember word I am looking for, but I'm very much a person who enjoys dialogue and like speeches and like hearing people talk about stuff.
Face to face.
Online learning, which is face to face stuff.
Yeah.
So like I struggle a lot with online learning. And the mental like boost I found from casting was like, oh, this is the first thing in a long time that like I'm not just passionate about. I would do this till I die. Like straight up, I've said this before to people, is that like I would cast until I'm like 98 years old, bro. Like I would cast until I'm like decrepit and can't cast no more. I love it. I think it's one of my favorite things. I genuinely enjoy this. Like it still feels like a job. I think nowadays it's hard. The vibes are still very much, I love it, but it's like I can't trick myself anymore and be like, oh boy, I can't wait to do this just because it's the greatest experience ever. You're like, this is awesome, but also, 7-hour broadcast. This is gonna be a lot. I'm gonna be tired after this. Like, it's gonna be a lot of work. I gotta prep for this. I gotta like study VODs and things before it. Like, it is work, and it very much feels like work now, even if it is the only work I would ever do until the day I die. But like, that's what drove me back then, was literally the idea that I had been working. One of kind of the trivia that I get to always throw out random trivia facts about myself just because of like weird stuff that I've done. I feel like I've always been the guy that apparently knows everybody to a lot of my friends. And one of the weird ones I do know is I did work for the #1 rated bakery in the country. I worked for what was called so Arsico Bakery is in San Francisco. It was rated by Tasty, I think, like in 2021 as the #1 bakery in all of the United States. It is a really, really cool like French bakery located. I can't even in the inner Richmond district of San Francisco. I worked there for like 6 to 8 months, maybe almost a year. Waking up every day at like 4 a.m., getting there, getting ready to serve people. We have a line out the door that stays constant the whole day. It's like that popular to where you've got like 40 customers waiting for a chance to step into the shop every second. So it's the most high intensity thing ever. And like, I was working that, and I went, a chance to not work this and to have a job that I truly love until the day I die. Yeah, this is the motivation I need. So mental health back then was honestly better than it had ever been because of the fact that I had drive. And I think that that's something that has carried me to this day, is like the truth and of the matter that like I truly love what I do, like really, truly do.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad you have that drive. I've seen it. I mean, there's a reason you are the self-proclaimed overly energetic caster and host. You can find it on his Twitter bio as well. His Twitter will be in the description right there. But however, not a lot of people understand how to get that drive. Do you have any advice for those trying to start in casting, or even just trying to start in a content-based role?
Do what you love. I think that's one of the biggest things, is that a lot of people honestly like kind of try to mold themselves as certain people or in certain directions, do certain things when it comes to especially content creation. You're like, okay, this type of content would be the most successful, therefore I want to. It's not going to be worth it. Nobody wants to watch you not be excited about what you're doing. True to God content is what people want to watch. They want to see your enthusiasm. They want to see who you are. They want to know who you are as a person and enjoy you. Because I think one of the biggest things a lot of people talk about is like, oh, it's a facade. Oh, it's a like type of blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's true for a lot of creators. They are going to put on a version of themselves. But in my opinion, the creators, especially I watch, I like to look for people that I think are very true and honest to themselves. You can tell what their personality is based on them making their type of content.
Yeah.
So I recommend that to everybody. When I made like I don't make content as much anymore. I will fully admit that. Like it's just like it's not something I do as much anymore because I just don't find the desire to do so in Rocket League. But the content I do, I love. I enjoy making it. Champ League is one of my favorite things. I enjoy it so much. Streaming games on my channel, I love doing it. Whether it's CRL, Rocket League, somewhere in between, it's just a lot of fun to like cover professional matches. Like that passion, if it's not there for you, it's going to be hard for you to make it in whatever industry, because especially esports, this is a passion-based industry, bro.
Yeah.
Like there's some money to be found, but nobody's like making buku bucks unless they're at like the very, 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 very top of what they are doing. The rest of us are in this because we love it. It's our passion. And we make enough to like live, to like put a roof over our head. And that's basically all we need, because we want to work this until we're gone. And a lot of the people I speak to in this street are like that. So if you do not have that passion, I will warn you, it's a hard place to be, man. It's a competitive industry. It's dog eat dog, and it's going to stay that way for probably forever.
Yeah. I mean, when you have a competitive industry like this, it truly is. It's an oversaturated market. Esports, it's a very brand new field. Obviously, like, yes, esports in itself been around for 70, 80 years now. However, the esports in the area, the place that we know it as nowadays, it truly is so dynamic, truly changing, sporadic, ever more. We are currently in an esports winter is what people are saying as well. So there is not a lot of orgs, especially if you look at Rocket League. There's not a lot of orgs in Rocket League right now. And that is something that comes from the publisher, the organizations themselves, and the financial stability. So being that full-time content and casting, it can be tough, but like that drive you have, you can make it work. You can. It truly can be made to be the best of what you have. However, at the same time, It's stressful. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
I would say
learning it
so.
now. I'm learning it to the best of my abilities. I mean, you went full time in 2021. I went full time as of like 3 weeks ago from the date of this
Yeah.
recording. So it's very stressful. I'm learning it now. And I mean, I've known you for almost 5 full years now, because we are in 2025. I met you in 2020. However, I've yet to cast with you.
Is that true?
That is
Really?
true. I have yet to cast a single game with you.
That's wild to me. I would have
Yeah.
thought somewhere at like NECC or similar.
No, I've never worked NECC.
That would make sense then.
Yeah, I never worked IGL, Indie Gaming League, never worked NECC, and that's also, I've never worked MLE. But that's all to fault on my own. I did not put myself out there when I was very beginning, and I have regrets about that. Like I said at the beginning of this podcast, I have regrets about not putting myself out there, and my career has paid the price now, but at the same time, I'm learning. This is all a learning experience. At the end of the day, you're going to be able to make mistakes. It's just a matter of how you can get back up from those mistakes. But that's going to be the end of this episode. Thank you once again, Bass, for joining me here. Is there any special shout outs, any projects that you are looking for people to get their eyes on? Because honestly, at the end of the day, it's going to be a funny one. It's going to be an energetic one if you're on it.
I mean, check out Champ League. I may be a little more subdued here because it's a podcast more about like actual topics and things. But like, wait until I get into some nonsense mode. You will hear me scream. You will hear me talk. Again, if you like me talking about that one segment being like, yo, you got ranked 77th in the country, not 70th, and like the passion I have there. Wait, watch me do that for an hour and a half. Like,
Lord.
it's a long thing. So shout out Champ League. Also just check out my channel as well. I'm actually streaming on Twitch a lot more often. So Bass in the Past on all socials, including streaming platforms such as YouTube and Twitch. I'm not always gonna be doing Rocket League on there, but I will be doing Rocket League occasionally. But the main thing, yeah, is just support for Champ League, support for the things that I do. It means the world. Like if you guys follow me on anything, because for casters, that's how we sell ourselves. That is how we are able to make a living. So yeah, check out me on any platform. Show support to anything I do. I appreciate it if you do, and if you don't, yeah, it's fine as well.
Yeah, and well, thank you so much once again for hopping on this podcast with me. This was Off the Pitch, episode 3. We'll see you guys again next week as I join one of more notable creator or figure from the Rocket League scene. And we'll see you guys there.